person dies, Jehovah's Witnesses read Ecclesiastes 9:5 as a source of encouragement. The dead know nothing at all. They use that to teach people that they don't have a soul that lives on after death, and they say that you're just unconscious until a future resurrection. It made sense to me when I was a JW. It seems pretty straightforward. But let's look at the context of what that verse actually means. Ecclesiastes is a unique book in the Bible. It's not just giving God straight up perspective like Proverbs does. It's more like Solomon's journal. He's talking about what life looks like when people try to figure it out on their own, apart from God. Over and over, he uses the phrase, under the sun, which means from his human standpoint, just looking at the world with your eyes and not relying on God's truth. So when Ecclesiastes 9:5 says that the dead know nothing, it's not making a factual doctrinal statement about the soul. It's saying that from a human viewpoint, the dead don't take part in life anymore. They're not working, talking, loving, or doing anything here on earth because that's all we can see. In the same passage, it says the dead have no more share in anything that is done under the sun. That's the key. It's describing what we can see here under the sun. Solomon's describing how things appear when we're using our human perspective. And from our human senses, it looks like the dead are gone and forgotten, doing nothing at all. But that's not the end of the story. Earlier in Ecclesiastes 3:21, Solomon says, "Who knows whether the spirit of a man goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes down into the earth?" Again, he's not making a factual doctrinal statement here. He's raising a question that reflects how unclear life and death is from human observation. From a purely earthly viewpoint, both humans and animals die and return to the dust, and we can't physically see what happens to the spirit. So Solomon is pointing that out, apart from God's revelation, apart from God specifically telling him the facts. So that uncertainty is part of a larger message. Without God, life feels confusing and hopeless, and we're left guessing. It's like saying from down here on a human standpoint, we can't see what happens when we die. The dead aren't doing anything, so who knows if they go up or down? And that's exactly what he was saying. And later in Ecclesiastes 12:7, Solomon gives us the actual answer. He says, "The dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it." So now he's not speaking from human reasoning and from what he can see. He's speaking from God's revelation or God revealing him the facts. He's saying, yes, the body dies, but yes, the spirit goes back to God. So if you take Ecclesiastes 9:5 and read it by itself and only focus on what it says specifically, you're going to misunderstand it. But when you read the whole book, beginning, middle, end, it becomes clear. Solomon is warning us that life without God leads to confusion and hopelessness. In Ecclesiastes 12:13, he says, "Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." So he's saying, don't trust what you see, trust what God says. Jehovah's Witnesses misuse Ecclesiastes 9:5 because they ignore the bigger picture. The verse isn't teaching what happens to the soul, it's describing how death looks from a human viewpoint, from a human standpoint. It's limited, observational, and incomplete without God's explanation or revelation. But the rest of the Bible makes it clear. The soul continues after death. I'm going to read a few scriptures about that. They also take these out of context. Luke 23:43, Jesus tells the thief, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." Jehovah's Witnesses try to change the meaning of that by moving the comma, making it look like Jesus is meaning, "I tell you today," instead of "I'm telling you, today you will be with me," instead of promising the thief that he would be with him that very day. But in the original Greek, there are no commas, and the context clearly supports the traditional reading, immediate presence with Christ. 2 Corinthians 5:8, Paul writes, "To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord." Revelation 6:9 and 10, John sees the souls of martyrs crying out to God from beneath the altar. These people have already died, and they're awake, speaking and aware. It's not symbolic, it's exactly what it sounds like, conscious life after death. So again, Ecclesiastes 12:7, Solomon concludes, the dust returns to the earth, but the soul goes back up to God. There's a clear separation between the body and the spirit. And in Matthew 10:28, Jesus says, "Don't fear those who can kill the body, but who cannot destroy the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both the soul and the body." So you can kill the body, but not the soul. Jesus is making a clear distinction between the two. So that destroys the idea that the soul and the body are the same thing, or that we don't have a soul. And the Bible repeatedly teaches that we are more than just physical beings, that we have a spirit or a soul that continues on beyond the grave. There are lots more scriptures that back that up. So in conclusion, it's not right to take that one verse and build an entire doctrine off of Ecclesiastes 9:5, especially when it's taken out of context. Ecclesiastes 9:5 on its own doesn't cancel out the dozens of other verses that clearly shows that the soul lives on and the soul goes back to God. Again, you have to look at the full context, not just picking out a single sentence to build a belief system around. The Bible doesn't contradict itself, but people picking and choosing and twisting and cherry-picking scriptures do contradict themselves.